What would you do if your ambition turned against you? In the treasure of the Sierra Madre, we see how gold isn't the treasure, it's a curse. The Treasure of the Sierra Madre is a 1948 neo-western film crafted by the legendary John Huston. It's based on a novel of the same name written by the mysterious B. Traven, a famous novelist whose identity remains unknown even today. Starring Humphrey Bogart as Fred C. Dobbs, Tim Holt as Curtin, Bruce Bennett as Cody, and Walter Huston, the director's father, as Howard. Critics often hail the film as Huston's magnum opus, his greatest cinematic achievement. For a man who directed The Maltese Falcon, The Man Who Will Be King, The African Queen, and more, this bold statement sets quite an expectation. Before proceeding, I need to warn you. The rest of the video contains major spoilers. From the very beginning, the Treasure of the Sierra Madre presents a mysterious world in Tampico. Since it is a world we are not accustomed to, it sparks a desire to explore, one that never fades throughout the film. The film reveals this obscure yet fascinating world through the eyes of Fred C. Dobbs.
I see it. Gold can be as much of a blessing as a curse.
So, what's this movie about? It's the story of three men venturing into the treacherous Sierra Madre for gold. Two of them, Dobbs and Curtin, are adventurous drifters, while the third, Howard, is a seasoned prospector.
The real stuff hereabouts. We walked over it 4 or 5 times.
Finding the gold is just the beginning. The real battle lies not only in facing external threats, but also in confronting the dangers within. As Howard puts it,
As long as there's no find, the noble brotherhood will last. But when the piles of gold begin to grow, that's when the trouble starts.
Fred C. Dobbs begins this journey as a penniless beggar. He begs the same man for scraps over and over again with no shame. He is not the novel protagonist. When a child selling lottery tickets insists a little, he pours a glass of water on his face. However, when he fights the boss who scammed him, he and Curtin manage to beat him. But Dobbs doesn't take all his money. He only takes what he's owed. It's apparent that Dobbs isn't motivated by sheer greed. When they don't have enough money to search for gold in Sierra Madre, luck smiles upon Dobbs, and he wins some money in the lottery. Without further thinking, he puts forth all the money he won, without wanting any extra share for himself. And he does it sincerely. Then what happens to him? How does Dobbs change along the journey? What haunts Dobbs and eventually all the crew? I've read a couple of analyses talking solely about the greediness of Dobbs. However, Dobbs is a more complicated character than this. Viewing Dobbs as merely greedy is an oversimplification, yet his flaws are so immense that they end up defining him. He is more paranoid than greedy, and a coward more than anything else. He constantly speculates and is debilitatingly afraid of being fooled by others. When they find their first gold and divide their shares, Dobbs becomes lost in dreams, grand fantasies of endless things to buy and do. No amount of gold, not even the whole mountain's worth, could satisfy him. These dreams capture his mind and soul. From that moment on, he becomes a slave to his ambition. The fear of losing what he has been dreaming of is overwhelming, driving him into madness. Every small possibility that could threaten his dreams looms as an enormous danger, and he feels so small, deep down against them. Howard knows Dobbs isn't a cold-blooded killer, but a weak man ruled by temptation and fear. Unlike Dobbs, Howard has a control over his inner demons. He has found balance within himself. strong enough to resist temptation and old enough not to be easily swayed. With age, the desire to achieve fades, like a fire dying out. Howard reflects by putting himself in Dobbs' shoes, alone in the wilderness with another man and the fortune of gold. He admits he wouldn't have known what gold could drive him to do if he were young. That's the thing about Howard. He is honest and steadfast, always staying true to himself and others. Throughout the flick, his perspective always sheds light on everything. The other adventurer, Curtin, pushes the limits of nobility. He has only one crucial flaw. He is so naive that it's hard to believe a man could survive in wild Tampico with such innocence. Let me explain how naive this man is. At a certain point, Dobbs' madness goes beyond the boundaries of what could be tolerated or excused, and his downfall is irreversible. Things will inevitably fall apart from his instability and unreliability. His paranoia is more than Curtin can handle on his own. Dobbs constantly claims that Curtin and Howard are scheming behind his back, picking fights for no reason and making things harder and harder for everyone. Even though Curtin saves the life of Dobbs from the collapsed mine and does other things to keep the crew safe, nothing matters to Dobbs. The veil over his eyes prevents him from seeing reality. The relentless cacophony of conspiracies in his head suppresses his reason. However, Curtin continues to ignore Dobbs' worsening situation, almost as if he overlooks obvious red flags on purpose for the plot's sake. He willingly set himself up for disaster, refusing to act despite the clear risks. The contrast between Curtin and Dobbs is like a chasm. While one sees threats wherever he looks, the other cannot see the threats standing right in front of him. If I were in Curtin's shoes, I'd have shot Dobbs at least 10 times before the credits rolled. But that would have made the story shorter, and we wouldn't have reached the desired conclusion. I wanna jump to the most heartfelt moments in the film that made me think. It comes when the crew finds a letter in Cody's jacket, written by his wife. Curtin reads the letter aloud. Her words give me a much needed pause from the relentless pursuit of gold. It reminds me of how we often forget to pause and breathe while pursuing our ambitions. Cody dreams of success and takes bold risks to achieve the goal he desires, and his wife wants him by her side at harvest time. In the end, neither gets what they want, but no one is to blame. Many chase wealth and success, racing endlessly against one another. Risk-taking leads to natural outcomes. Some rise, some fall, and some die in the attempt. So venture is necessary for man, but knowing when to pause and reflect is just as important. We should never let our desires control us. While ambition is essential, we must learn to master it. Striking that perfect balance requires extraordinary effort. Dobbs is a prime example of what might happen when ambition combines with a weak character. Despite his great hunger, Dobbs lacks the confidence and common sense to ground himself. Great ambitions demand equally noble character to avoid corruption. If you dream of conquering the world, you must first ask yourself, do you have enough resilience to restrain that ambition when necessary? The treasure of the Sierra Madre allows us to explore the depths of human nature. It shows us how a man becomes a slave to his desires and how the fear of losing drives him to the edge of madness. Whether it rains or shines, everyone should learn to accept loss with grace and live fully without being consumed by the fear of losing what he has or what he could have been. I won't say exactly what happens at the end, but I can tell you this. When God makes a tragic joke, being able to laugh heartily like Howard and Curtin is more precious than anything. After all, isn't it absurd to let the fear of losing our dreams drown us when even the breath we take isn't truly ours to control? In the end, the treasure of the Sierra Madre is not just about gold. It's about humanity's eternal struggle with ambition, fear, and loss. The question it asks us is timeless. If we were in Dobbs' place, what would we have done? Will we rise above those fears? Or would we, like Dobbs, shoot ourselves in the foot?